Africans generally are storytellers. So. And I also think that human beings are storytellers. Because I always make this joke that the difference between you and a cow and a goat is that you tell stories. And the difference between me and you, well, you are a storyteller also.
Of course.
You do something different. But most times I tell people, you are storytellers. They say, no, but you don't tell stories like you do. But I say, when you leave in the morning and go to work and come in the evening, and you're finding your wife, your husband, your significant other, your family, your kids, and they're asking, so how was your day? And you say, oh man, you remember in the morning I woke up very late. So of course, I was going to work, and then I had to run to go to the stage, and it's been raining last night, and this silly matatu driver actually splashed water on me. So I was late to work, and my boss wasn't very happy. So, I had to hide myself until lunchtime. But then after lunch, you know what? My friend Grace came and took me for lunch, and we had a nice time. And come evening, I had finished all my work for the week, so my weekend is free.
Right.
What are you doing?
Exactly.
You're telling stories.
I love it, by the way. But, some people think storytelling is such a hard craft. Is that true?
I think good storytellers have to put work into their storytelling.
Yeah, there's a skill to it.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, so what do you have to do for you to actually be a good storyteller?
I think one thing with us, especially in Kenya, we don't really have a school for storytelling. So for me, for instance, is that I had to learn from other storytellers who were before me. I had to sit with storytellers, listen to their stories, see how they're telling stories. And you also should watch and listen to storytellers from around the world. And then once you do that, you realize that different storytellers have different skills that they lean into. And then please choose one that works for you. Because one of the biggest issues I think we have is also that I come and say, hey, Kev is amazing on radio. So when I become a radio presenter, I want to be like Kev.
Yeah, so I set the bar. I'm like the ideal.
Exactly. But then the problem is that, anyone who listens to me will be like, oh, yeah, she's good, but she sounds like Kev. So you're setting the ground for comparison, as opposed to, oh, I love what Kev does. Okay, he is really good at interacting with people. What's my thing? How can I lean on that?
Right.
And I think that's what makes you as a storyteller unique in your own way.
Amazing. Unique. Yeah. It's very hard for people to sound unique. Like, we always try and be like the other person. Like, I want to sound like Grace so I can be as good as her. But really, that makes you not, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not memorable.
Yeah, you don't even stand out.
Yeah, you don't stand out. I like that. So why do you like doing what you do? Performance storyteller, children's author. How did you even get to that space?
My background is theatre. So theatre, I started with theatre, traveling theatre. I've done a bit of TV. So guys were watching Matara Junction those days of Kitambo.
Yeah, for real?
New Zealand, I know. I watch my YouTubes and I'm like, oh my God. Looks like a different life, a different person.
Yeah.
But then I met this team doing storytelling, and I absolutely loved it. Because what was different is that, when you're doing a play, or if you're writing a book, you're writing with a very specific audience in mind. But with a story, you can actually work across the board. I can work with kids in the morning. I can go to a college in the afternoon. I can do a family. I can do a conference. And I absolutely loved that about it.
Yeah. It's amazing. For me, communication skills and storytelling is one thing that I promise myself I have to master. And that's why on this show, I've actually been engaging with a lot of storytellers and poets and creatives. That's why I call this feature Culture Kitchen. Now, just to get started, I know you've got an amazing event coming up.
Yes.
I want you to talk about it real quick.
So, next year, in June, I will actually be celebrating my 20th year in storytelling.
What?
I know, it sounds crazy even for me. Especially for someone who wasn't planning to come into the arts to stay. It was supposed to be a phase before I become a proper adult and do adult things.
Okay.
So last year it hit me like, Wangari, you're going to be 20 years as a performance storyteller.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, what is the one thing you can actually do to mark this this year? And I sat with a few friends and told them, you know what, I'm actually thinking, a year has 12 months to do a show in 20 counties between January and December. Basically, a county for every year that I've been in performance.
That's amazing.
And initially, I was very apprehensive. I was wondering, oh, wow. So if I put it out there and say I'm going to do it, then, the pressure it becomes higher.
Right.
But I think it's really would be a great way for me, especially because most of my work is in Kajiado, Nairobi, and Kiambu. But I know that through my work, some of which is on TV or online, there are so many other people who are out there in the different counties who also interact with my work. And I thought, what is the best gift I can give me than going out there and meeting them?
Exactly. So you're going to be meeting children, basically, in all across these counties?
Children, adults, families. So the idea is to work with, to do schools, to do cultural or artistic events, and to also do family shows. Because I think one of the reasons I love storytelling is that it's actually a way for families to bond. Because stories work for kids, for adults. It's one art or one source of entertainment that you can actually sit there with your kids, with your grandparents, and all of you are going to have fun.
Exactly.
So I'm also looking forward to do not just children's events, but also family shows, maybe work with a few bookshops who stock my books. So it's also a way to saying thank you. I see you, what you're doing.
How many books have you written so far?
Well, in print, I have 21 books. 21 books, both in English and Kiswahili.
Nice.
And I also have some books available online. So if you go to AKF Media, Sogakan Foundation, through Lamb Sisterhood, myself and a couple of other amazing Kenyan writers did some stories that are available not just as picture books, but are available as comics. They are available as audio stories, so you can also find these online.
Good stuff. So, kids and their minds, they're first of all, they're very tender, but they're also very impressionable. What responsibility do you have when you curate stories for them?
I love kids in one way, for this reason, that kids are very honest. If I'm trying out a story, whether I'm planning to tell it to adults or kids, I try it out with kids first because they're very honest. If something is not fun, it's not catchy, it's not interesting to them, they won't be like, adults will be like, oh yeah, that was nice. But kids, if they don't like it,
they don't know how to feature.
They don't feature, they just show you like, so is it almost over? So my, when I'm doing something for the kids, I spend the first couple of minutes to basically create a rapport, to just saying, this is actually not a lecture, it's not a speech, it's a conversation. And once you create that bond, then you bring them into the world of storytelling and just saying, it's not me here as an adult coming and telling you stuff. It's a story. We're chatting together. So one of my main responsibilities is to make sure that, because of storytelling is also about the concentration span, keeping them there, keeping them listening to it, keeping them engaging especially. Because it won't be storytelling if it's just, you sitting there telling and saying, hey, talking there and they're not even engaging. So my main responsibility is to make sure, one, they're getting, they can concentrate to it, they can get engaged, because then
that's the word,
you actually find yourself learning without being told, sit there and learn.
I was gonna ask you about this whole thing for attention span, because they talk about how they have a very short attention span, probably because of social media and so is it really hard to have them engaged? Do you think they get distracted so fast? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, definitely. And I think it's something I've also seen over the last couple of years. I think because of the screen and also, noise and sound and getting busy, everything is happening so fast that sometimes, depending on the children that you're engaging with, some of them find it very hard to even sit down and focus. And it's also something that a few schools have actually called me and told me, our children, one, they're having an issue with the concentration span, but they're also having an issue with creating an imagination. Because I think we are living in a world where everything is presented to us as is. Oh, we wanted to keep it real, so it's as it is. So I've been called a couple of times by a teacher who says, I want my children to engage with creativity, to engage with fantasy, to engage with imagination, because this also plays not just in the way they interact with you as an adult and with the other children, but also plays into their academics.
I can imagine. Yeah. So what's that story that you shared with children and maybe there was one child, a bunch of them, but that you felt like this story really impacted them or changed certain aspects of their lives? What was this story about?
Well, I think it's been a couple. One that one project that I did that I didn't really expect the results. So mostly I work with fiction stories. but I also work sometimes with non-fiction stories. So I was working on a collaboration project with a German musician called Sven Kaczurek, and we were actually doing stories, so we're calling it an oral history of Africa between 1880 and 1994.
Right.
And of course, if you've learned your history, you know, of course, we're talking about the colonialism and the fight for independence in different African countries. And of course, you realize that when you're talking about fight for independence in all African countries, it's a lot of violence, it's a lot of suffering, it's a lot of things are happening. And one of the stories we were sharing was actually the story of Congo and the brutality around picking of rubber and chopped hands. And I remember doing a show in Munich, in Germany. We had some 6 to 8 year olds brought at a class of 30. And I saw them and I was like, wow, six looks really small when you see it in persons, as opposed to the number.
Yeah.
And I was a bit afraid because I'm thinking all these issues that we're bringing on board, you know, it's a truth, yes, but it's also a lot of brutality. And I was wondering, will the kids actually go home and have nightmares? So we did this story, and of course, there is a very famous photo of a man who is sitting and watching the chopped hands and remains of their child. And after that, the question that the kids actually asked, these are 6 to 8 year olds, they were asking, okay, so you guys mentioned about the colonial period. Is Belgium the only country that colonized other countries in Africa?
Wow.
And they were asking, okay, so, but why do we still practice racism?
Yeah, what?
And I'm just thinking, okay, there's an 8-year-old actually asking this question.
Yeah.
And then what shocked me even more is that 2 years later, we were invited back to Munich to do something different. And then the school invited us now to the school. And what they had done, and I absolutely loved this after such an engagement, is that the children had actually gone and done their own research.
Yeah.
And then when we were there, they went to the street at a small park, and they would ask people in the street, so what do you think about this whole colonialism thing? How do you think Africa would be without the colonialism?
Yeah.
How do you think Europe would be? And I think for me that was really it was explosive in my mind, because that 8-year-olds who are now 10-year-olds can actually grasp this whole thing and just say, you know what, we had one story, we want to go and find out other stories, and then we want to see how that impacts our current world.
That's amazing. But these are European kids, isn't
Exactly, these are European kids.
Yeah, so,
now, locally, one of the things that I absolutely love, and I've had this over and over again, especially from parents, is parents calling me or messaging me on social media and telling me, oh, you know what, after you told that story, my kid absolutely loved it, went and rewrote it, made a few changes. My kid went and did some illustrations and drawings around it. And one of my books is called The Color Magician. And when it came out, I remember parents telling me, no, Wangari, you're giving us a different budget, because now it's around mixing colors, and it's like, okay, we're making magic.
Right.
And now the kids will be like, are you sure it is true? So buy us colors. We're going to mix it and confirm if it's true. So I think those for me are small things that tell me, you know what, you're doing the right thing.
And there's a lot of lessons to learn from that, because some parents or society in itself imagines that kids don't really understand the broader world. They don't understand what's happening out there. They don't have opinions. But when we expose them to this kind of information and stories like this, you'd be surprised. They want to engage more. They want to learn more. So we're living in some interesting times now. When we look at it from a Kenyan context, apparently I've heard or I've observed, especially from my own life as well, that kids somehow prefer foreign content, foreign stories. Yeah, why do you think that's the case? And how do you balance the two? Because I know you can also just talk about stories about, because you said you like sharing, fictional stories, maybe something that happened in another world or in another country, so how do you bring it and make it, bring it and of course give a Kenyan context to some of these stories that you share with the kids? And why do they really like foreign stories?
Let me throw back a question to you. Where do they learn this foreign content from?
The media and social media and internet.
Okay, where are they getting social media and the internet?
From the phones.
Whose phones? Whose televisions?
Our parents' phones.
Exactly, because you know what? One thing I love about kids is that kids, you can sit there and preach and say, don't, do. But as long as you, the adult in their lives, are not doing that, or you're doing something different, they will follow exactly that. that.
Really?
So our kids are actually watching foreign content because that's what they are observing us watching. I remember when I'm a mother of 2 kids, and I remember my youngest, my oldest, when she was growing, and I was very intentional for her to grow up speaking Swahili, because of course I knew when she went to school, then English is going to be the norm. And that had to be very intentional also on my side. I need to consume content, even in the house. It's Swahili.
Yeah.
So it is exactly the same thing. It's a monkey see, monkey do.
Absolutely.
Our children are doing that because that is what they're observing. Yeah. That is also what, when they go out there, when they talk with their friends are saying, oh, I've been watching this and this and this and this. They come and share that. But I believe that if we want to change this, we need to start changing from ourselves. Yeah. And actually also, as adults, learning to appreciate what is local.
It's true. I love that. Yeah, for me, I grew up also in a home where, Kwanzaa, when I go to the village, because I'm from Kisumu, Gem, but I'm also partly from Kisi. My grandma, till today, she likes telling me about the past, and it fascinates me. Yeah, I feel like that art has to come back. Especially us guys as millennial parents. Yeah, we need to be intentional about sharing stories of the past and what we learned from our grandparents. But you think that would be a step in the right direction as well?
It definitely would be, but also, apart from just telling stories about the past and the present, is linking those stories to the current,
absolutely,
and the future, because that is how you show them that. One thing I observe is when people talk about traditional stories is they say, oh, things that happened a long time ago, as if they have no relevance to what is happening now.
It's true.
And also to predicting the future. So for instance, I'm trying to imagine if you grew up listening to any folktales. Have the values that were in those stories changed? And now, will they change tomorrow? So if you are trying to look at inculcating values, it's looking at what is there, but also linking it to the past, to the present, and to the future. And not as, okay, this happened a long time ago. It's like, a long time ago, but does it relate to now? And I think one thing that kids do very well is that relation.
It's true.
Because when, for instance, if I came here and told a story about animals, about a speaking cat and a dog, adults will also will just be like, oh, yeah, of course, they're speaking. But the kids actually, they're very attentive. The cat said what? The dog said what? And it's not that they believe that the cat and dog can talk. No, because they know they don't talk. But they also know subconsciously that the cat and the dog, are characters in our human lives.
Right.
So that even when you go and tell a story about, a trickster kakasungura, if you were about to ask the kids or even in a class and say, so do you know any kakasungura? They will tell you, so and so and so and so. And you don't have to explain that kakasungura is those who trick. They already pick these kinds of things from the stories that you tell. So it's also about linking what we are learning very informally. First of all, making it fun and informal and shareable.
Yes.
And then now linking it. Don't make it look like, okay, now this is a learning moment.
Like it's a lecture.
Exactly. No. We've learned about it. So, do you think that we know any hyenas in our lives? And how would they look like? Okay, what do you think would be, if you were telling this story, how would it be different? Like, for me, the hyena would not have eaten the kakasungura. Maybe I would just have forgiven him.
What?
Kids have
that's
all
amazing.
These kinds of things.
Now, let me ask you something, Grace. So that's the thing about performance storytelling. You bring to life these stories. And I've seen your work, because there's a way you have, your tonality is so powerful. You're going to use a different voice for the sungura. You're going to use a different one for the lion. And then the mother of the area. I don't know. There's a way you go about it. And so you feel like if we share stories like that, that's when these kids are fascinated about the stories. That's when they want to engage even more, right? Definitely.
I think the first thing is know what stories to tell to who. So, of course, if you're working with very young kids, they love animal stories. They love tricks. They love high-energy stories. If you're working with teenagers, they probably love to hear about legends.
Superheroes.
Exactly, because also in their lives they're exploring themselves, they're discovering things, they're discovering heroes. So they would be more receptive probably to a legend or a myth as opposed to a trickster. So it's vast. Who are you telling the stories to? How do you pick stories that actually relate to them? And also, depending on who you're telling the story, also the way you tell the story changes. So like you're saying, children, it's playful, it's loud, it's this. If you're telling the same story to teenagers or to adults, also the tonality also changes, because then you don't have to explain so many things. Like, this we identify this.
So what about for adults?
Exactly.
Well, how do you capture their attention for real?
Let me tell you one thing. One thing I love to do with adults, especially Kenyan adults, because parents are like, no, you serious people, we do serious things. So if I'm doing, let's say, a workshop with adults or performing in a conference, the first story I tell will be a very silly story.
Okay, like which one?
Like an animal story.
Oh, wow, okay.
And there's one that I love. It's actually by a Kenyan author called Muthoni Mushemi. It's called Kokoriko Who Woke Me Up. It's actually the book. And so when I begin telling that story, I'll actually say, have you been on a farm? And they'll be like, of course you have been on a farm. Like, what kind of questions are you asking?
Like, duh.
Yeah, And I'm like, so what do you find there? So you find some cows. What sound do they make? And the others are like, Wangari, you are not serious. You want me, 50, 70-year-old, to make the sound of a cow?
Yeah.
And the story goes for about 10 minutes. Yeah. But by then, they're already loosened up. They can afford to laugh at themselves. Yeah. They can afford to engage and say, okay, you got me there. You actually got me engaged into this. Yeah. Before now, maybe you bring up a piece that is something serious, a theme that is a bit heavy, that complements why you are there.
Amazing. Amazing.
But I love doing silly things because I think Kenyan adults, we take ourselves so seriously.
I think so too. We've been through so much. Can't you see this Kenyan experience? My friend was telling me, Kevin, if Kenya was an episode, we'd always be like a bestseller. If it was like a TV series. All right, so hold it right there. That is Wangari Grace. She's a performance storyteller, also an author, children's author. We're talking why stories matter in this day and age. We're building imagination in a digital generation. It's 1:45 of the hour. We're coming back in just a bit. Right now, Player's Prayer by